The gold pocket watch slipped from Kate Brennan's frozen fingers. She caught it against her swollen belly, 7 months pregnant. 4 days without food. And this timepiece was all that stood between her unborn child and starvation. Outside Ashford's general store, December snow fell like ash over Colorado Springs, burying her husband's grave 2 miles away, and any hope she'd carried since the railroad took him. Her hands shook as she pushed open the door. She didn't know a stranger inside was about to give up everything he owned. She didn't know her life was about to change forever. If you want to see how far this story of second chances travels, subscribe and comment what city you're watching from. Stay until the end. You won't believe what happens next. The bell above the door rang like a funeral chime. Kate stepped into warmth that felt like mockery against her frozen skin. Her boots. Patrick's boots too large, but all she had left wet prints on the plank floor. The store smelled of coffee and leather and prosperity, everything she'd lost when the blasting powder took her husband 6 months ago. Hiram Ashford looked up from his ledger. His eyes went to her belly first, then to her face, then to the watch clutched in her red chapped hand. "Mrs. Brennan." His voice dripped false sympathy. "What brings you out in this weather? Surely not wise in your condition." Kate's jaw tightened. She'd walked 2 miles through December snow because her condition was exactly what brought her here. The baby kicked hard, as if agreeing. "I need supplies, Mr. Ashford." Of course. He set down his pen with deliberate care. "What did you have in mind?" "Flour, beans, salt pork." Her voice steadied, despite the trembling in her legs. "Coffee if there's enough." "Enough what, my dear?" She held up the watch. Ashford's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. He'd been waiting for this moment, she realized. Waiting for her to run out of everything Patrick had left behind. The tools were gone, sold one by one. The winter coat, the good saddle. Now the watch, the last piece of her husband she could hold in her hand. Patrick's watch. Ashford reached for it, but Kate pulled back. "I know what it's worth. $20 at least. Gold case, Swiss movement. Patrick bought it in Denver the day we married." "Sentimental value doesn't translate to market value, Mrs. Brennan." "Then translate the gold." Ashford took the watch, turning it over in his soft hands. Hands that had never swung a pickaxe, or laid railroad ties, or held a dying man while his lungs filled with rock dust. $7, Ashford said finally. The number hit Kate like a physical blow. 7, it scratched. The mechanism sticks. "And frankly, my dear, I'm doing you a favor taking it at all." He set it on the counter between them. $7, that's my offer. Kate's vision blurred. $7 wouldn't last 2 weeks. She'd sold everything for this moment, this transaction, and it still wasn't enough. 10, she heard herself say. "It's worth 10 at minimum." 7. "Mr. Ashford, please?" "Mrs. Brennan." His voice hardened. "I'm a businessman, not a charity house. $7 is generous considering your circumstances. You're a widow with no income, no prospects, and a child coming who'll need feeding. That watch is the last thing keeping you from complete destitution. I'd say that makes it worth exactly what I'm willing to pay." The cruelty of it stole her breath. He wasn't just buying the watch. He was buying her desperation, her future, the land Patrick had died trying to secure for their family. Kate's hand moved to the watch. She'd held it the night Patrick died, listening to it tick while her world stopped. She'd wound it every morning since keeping his time, pretending he might walk through the door and ask why supper wasn't ready. "I'll need to think about—" "Of course. Take your time." Ashford's smile was a knife. "Though I should mention the price drops to 6 tomorrow. Supply and demand, you understand. The longer you wait, the less I can offer." He was boxing her in. Tomorrow it would be 5. Next week, 4. Eventually she'd take anything, and then he'd have what he really wanted, the land deed she'd have to sell to survive the winter. Kate opened her mouth to argue, to fight, to do something other than stand there defeated. That's when the door opened again. Scene 2. The Stranger. Cold air rushed in with the stranger. Kate turned expecting another customer, another witness to her humiliation. Instead, she saw a man shaking snow from a leather duster that had seen 1,000 miles of hard travel. Tall, lean, with dark hair to his shoulders, and eyes that took in everything without seeming to look directly at anything. He removed his hat, and Kate saw the scar through his left eyebrow. A war wound, probably. Half the men in Colorado carried pieces of that war in their bodies. "Afternoon," the stranger said. His voice was low, quiet, but it filled the store. Ashford straightened. "Sir, welcome to Ashford's General. How can I assist you?" "Need supplies. Heading north to Cheyenne. Thought I'd stock up before the pass closes." "Wise decision. We're expecting another storm tonight." Ashford moved to the shelves, already calculating. "Let me show you what I have available." Kate used the distraction to wipe her eyes. She wouldn't cry in front of witnesses. Patrick had always said she was strong as railroad iron. She'd prove him right even now. The stranger glanced at her, then away. Polite, disinterested. She was just another pregnant woman in a frontier store, no more remarkable than the flour sacks or the pickle barrels. She turned back to the counter, to the watch lying there like an accusation. $7, she said quietly. "I'll take it." "Excellent choice, Mrs. Brennan." Ashford reached for the watch, but Kate's hand got there first. "Wait." The word came out harder than she intended. "I want to see the supplies first. I want to know exactly what $7 buys." Ashford's lips thinned. Of course. He moved to the shelves, pulling down items with deliberate slowness. A small sack of flour, 5 pounds maybe. A half-pound of coffee. Some dried beans in a paper wrapper. A thin cut of salt pork that wouldn't feed her for a week. Kate stared at the pile. This was it. This was all her husband's life amounted to. All their dreams, their plans, their love reduced to 5 pounds of flour and some beans. "That's $7. Her voice shook despite her best efforts. "Prices have gone up with the weather. Supply lines are unreliable in winter. Those same supplies cost $4 last month. Last month you weren't desperate." The honesty of it was almost refreshing. At least he'd stopped pretending this was anything other than what it was, exploitation dressed up as commerce. Kate reached for the watch, her fingers closing around the warm gold. She thought about Patrick winding it every morning, checking the time like they had somewhere to be, other than the half-built cabin and the railroad that would kill him. She thought about the baby inside her, Patrick's child, who'd never know their father except through stories and this watch. She thought about surrender. "Done," she whispered. She set the watch down. Ashford reached for it, and the stranger spoke. Scene 3. The offer. "Hold on." 2 words. Quiet. But they stopped Ashford's hand mid-air. Kate turned. The stranger was looking at the watch now, really looking, and something in his expression had changed. Not pity. She couldn't have borne pity, but recognition. Like he'd seen this scene before, lived it, lost by it. "That's a fine timepiece," the stranger said. "Swiss made." "Yes," Kate said cautiously. "My husband bought it in Denver. Must be worth more than $7. Mr. Ashford seems to disagree." The stranger walked closer. He didn't move like other men. Each step was measured, controlled, like he was always ready for something to go wrong. Up close, Kate saw the gray in his eyes wasn't just color, but distance, years of seeing things he'd rather forget. "May I?" He gestured to the watch. Kate nodded, and he picked it up with a gentleness that surprised her. He opened the case, examined the mechanism, held it to his ear to hear it tick. His hands were scarred, she noticed. Working hands. Honest hands. "Movement's perfect," the stranger said. "No sticking that I can hear. Case has some wear, but that's character, not damage." He looked at Ashford. "I'd say this is worth $20–25 easy." "Your opinion is noted," Ashford said coldly. "But I'm the buyer here, and I say 7. "You're robbing her." The accusation hung in the air like gun smoke. Ashford's face went red. "How dare you?" This is a private transaction between me and Mrs. Brennan. I'll thank you not to interfere. Doesn't sound private when I can hear you cheating her from across the store. I'm offering fair market value. You're offering starvation wages to a pregnant woman in winter." The stranger's voice didn't rise, but something in it made Ashford step back. That's not commerce. That's cruelty. Kate's heart hammered. She wanted to speak to defend herself, to tell this stranger she could fight her own battles, but her mouth would not work. 4 days without food, 6 months of grief, and now this, a stranger defending her when her own community had turned its back. "Sir," Ashford said stiffly, "unless you're interested in purchasing the watch yourself, I suggest you mind your own business." The stranger looked at Kate. Really looked at her. She saw him take in the threadbare shawl, the 2 large boots, the way her dress hung loose everywhere except her belly. She saw him see her, all of her, the desperation and the pride and the fear. "How much do you need?" he asked her directly. Kate blinked. What? How much do you need? Not for today, for the winter." "I don't understand." "Flour, beans, salt pork, coffee. How much to get you through to spring?" The question was so unexpected that Kate answered honestly. $50, maybe 45 if I'm careful." The stranger reached into his coat. When his hand came out, he was holding a leather purse. He set it on the counter next to the watch with a sound that made Ashford's eyes go wide. $200, the stranger said. 3 years' wages from Wells Fargo. I'm heading to Cheyenne for a security job, but I figure I can get there without it if I need to. He looked at Kate. "You take what you need from Ashford's stock, whatever it takes to get through winter. The rest you keep. Emergency fund." Kate couldn't breathe. "I can't." "You can. I don't even know you." "Don't need to." He picked up Patrick's watch and pressed it into her hand, folding her fingers around it. His hands were warm despite the cold outside. "Some things are right and some things are wrong. A pregnant widow going hungry in winter is wrong. That's all I need to know." Tears came then, hot and shameful and impossible to stop. Kate tried to speak, to thank him, to ask his name, to understand why a complete stranger would do this. "Sir," she managed, "I'll pay you back, every cent, I swear it." "Where?" "No need. I'll not take charity." "It's not charity, it's—" He paused, something painful crossing his face. "It's someone doing what should have been done a long time ago. You accept it, you survive winter, you raise that baby. That's payment enough." Ashford had gone pale. "This is highly irregular. This is commerce," the stranger said, echoing Ashford's earlier words. "I'm buying her supplies. You're selling them. Nothing irregular about that." "But unless you're refusing my money." The stranger's hand moved slightly toward his hip, where Kate now saw the gun. Not threatening, just present. "That would be irregular. Man refusing legal tender for goods advertised for sale." Ashford swallowed. "No, of course not. I just— Mrs. Brennan, do you accept this gentleman's offer?" Kate looked at the purse on the counter. $200. More money than Patrick had made in a year of railroad work. Enough to survive winter, to have the baby, with a midwife present, to maybe, just maybe, keep the land Ashford wanted so badly. She looked at the stranger. "Why?" "Because I can," he said simply. "Because someone helped me once when I needed it, and I never got the chance to pay it back. So I'm paying it forward." "What's your name?" A hesitation. Then, "Samuel McKenna. Most people call me Sam." "I'm Catherine Brennan, Kate." "Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Brennan." He said it like they were being introduced at a church social, not in a general store where he'd just given away 3 years of his life. The absurdity of it made Kate laugh, a small, broken sound that turned into a sob halfway through. "Mr. McKenna." "Sam, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just make a list of what you need, and let's get you stocked up before that storm hits." Scene 4. The supplies. Ashford moved like a man in a dream as Sam directed him through the store. 50 pounds of flour, 20 pounds of beans, no make it 30. That salt pork there, the whole side. Coffee, you got sugar. Good 5 pounds of each. Dried apples if you have them. Lard, cornmeal, molasses. Sam glanced at Kate. What else? Medical supplies. Kate's mind was still reeling, but she managed. Bandages, alcohol for cleaning, willow bark for fever. You heard her, and I'll need seeds you won't plant until spring, but having them ready wouldn't hurt. Corn, beans, squash, whatever grows in this soil. This is going to cost well over $100, Ashford said weakly. I'm aware. Keep going. They watched as Ashford assembled the supplies, his movements getting slower and more resentful with each item. Kate found herself trembling, not from cold now, but from the overwhelming reality of what was happening. Food. Real food. Enough food. The baby kicked hard, and Kate pressed her hand to her belly. Your timing is something else, she murmured. Sam heard. When are you due? March. Early March, I think. You got help? A midwife. There's a woman in town. Mrs. Thorne, she's a preacher, but she's delivered babies before. She said... Kate stopped, embarrassed. Said what? Said she'd come when my time came if someone could pay her. Sam added more items to the pile on the counter. Fabric, for baby clothes, and wool you knit. Some. Wool then. Needles, thread. He was moving now like a man with a mission, pulling things from shelves that Kate hadn't even thought to need. Lamp oil, matches, candles, soap. You got a gun at your place? Patrick had a rifle. Ammunition. I don't know. Sam grabbed a box of cartridges. Better to have it and not need it. Watching him work, Kate felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just charity. This was care. Thought. Like he was planning for her survival the way a father might plan for a daughter or a brother for a sister. Not romantic. There was nothing improper in his manner, but protective. Devoted to a purpose she didn't fully understand. Why are you doing this? She asked again. Sam didn't stop moving. Told you. Someone helped me once. Who? A long pause. Then, my wife. Before she died. The confession was quiet, painful. Kate saw his shoulders tighten, saw him reach for another item just to have something to do with his hands. I'm sorry, she said. Long time ago. But his voice said it wasn't, would never be. She died having our son. Baby didn't make it either. I was 17, thought I knew everything. Turns out I didn't know enough to save either of them. Kate's throat closed. How old are you now? 36. Been drifting since the war. Figured if I kept moving, I'd eventually outrun it. He looked at her, and his eyes were ancient. Doesn't work. Grief's faster than horses. I'm learning that. Your husband, the railroad. Blasting accident. They said it was quick, but I don't know if that's true or if they just say that to widows. Kate touched the watch in her pocket. He was a good man. He shouldn't have died. None of them should. Sam set the last item on the counter, a small tin of hard candy. For when the baby comes, everyone deserves something sweet now and then. The kindness of it broke something in Kate. She bent over the counter, sobbing, all the grief and fear and exhaustion pouring out in a way she hadn't allowed since Patrick's funeral. She felt Sam's hand on her shoulder, brief, comforting, then withdrawn. Proper. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm so sorry, I don't usually... You got nothing to apologize for. Cry if you need to. God knows you've earned it. Ashford cleared his throat. The total is $173.42. Sam counted out the money without blinking. Kate watched the bills pile up, more money than Ashford had probably seen in a month. When Sam was done, he had exactly $26.58 left. That's for your emergency fund, Sam said, pressing the remaining money into Kate's hand. Hide it somewhere safe. Don't tell anyone you have it. Sam, you've given me everything. I've given you a chance. What you do with it is up to you." He turned to Ashford. "I'll need help loading this into Mrs. Brennan's wagon." "She doesn't have a wagon," Ashford said with spiteful satisfaction. "She walked here." Sam went very still. She walked 2 miles. In this snow, in her condition. Kate lifted her chin. "I had no choice." "You got a wagon?" Sam asked Ashford. "Well, yes, but I'm renting it. $10 for the day." "That's robbery." Sam smiled without humor. "Thought you were a businessman, Ashford. This is just commerce." Scene 5. The ride home. The wagon ride was silent at first. Sam drove with easy competence, his hands steady on the reins, despite the snow that had started falling harder. Kate sat beside him wrapped in a blanket he'd bought from Ashford, surrounded by more supplies than she'd seen in months. The abundance felt surreal. Dangerous, even. Like accepting it meant accepting that her life had changed, that she couldn't go back to the woman she'd been that morning. "Where's your place?" Sam asked. "North of town, near Copper Creek." Kate pulled the blanket tighter. "It's not much. Patrick was building it when he died. Half the roof's not finished. I've been living in one room." "You got firewood?" "Some. Not enough for a full winter." Sam nodded like he'd expected this. "I'll chop some before I leave." "You're leaving?" "Got a job in Cheyenne. Stage leaves tomorrow afternoon." Tomorrow. Kate felt something sink in her chest that she didn't want to examine. This stranger had saved her life and now he was leaving and she'd never see him again. It was fair. It was expected. It still felt like loss. What kind of job? Security for the territorial governor. Boring work mostly, standing around looking intimidating while politicians argue. "You're good at looking intimidating." He glanced at her surprised, and she saw the ghost of a smile. "That's the idea." They rode in silence for a while. The snow fell heavier, and Kate found herself studying Sam's profile. The scar through his eyebrow, the lines around his eyes that suggested he'd spent years squinting into sun and wind, the beard that couldn't quite hide how young he'd been when he'd lost everything. "What was her name?" Kate asked. "Your wife." "Sarah." His voice was careful. "Sarah McKenna. We were married 8 months before the end." "Tell me about her." "Why?" "Because you gave me everything you had today, and I don't even know who you are. I want to know." Sam was quiet so long Kate thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "She was a baker's daughter in Kansas, made the best bread I've ever tasted, sang all the time even when she was doing dishes, loud off-key, didn't care who heard." His hands tightened on the reins. "When she was pregnant, she'd talk to the baby, tell them stories about the life we'd have, the family we'd build. She was so sure everything would be fine. But it wasn't. No. Labor went on too long. Baby was breech. By the time we got the doctor, Sarah was bleeding, and there was nothing." He stopped, started again. "Doctor said I should have come sooner. Like I hadn't been running through snow trying to find him. Like I hadn't been begging him to come while Sarah screamed. He blamed me, and maybe he was right." "He wasn't." Kate said it fiercely. "He was wrong, and he's a coward for saying it." Sam looked at her startled. "My husband died because the railroad didn't check the blasting powder properly." Kate continued. "The foreman said Patrick should have been more careful, should have double-checked. Like it was Patrick's fault for trusting his employer not to kill him. Some people can't admit accidents happen, so they blame the victims. Makes them feel safer, like if they just do everything right, tragedy won't find them. Does it work? No. Tragedy finds everyone eventually. Being careful just means you see it coming." Sam's laugh was short and bitter. "That's the darkest thing anyone said to me in months." "I'm sorry. I'm not usually this." Kate waved a hand encompassing her disheveled state. Her tears, her brutal honesty. Honest, broken. You're not broken. You're surviving. There's a difference. Kate wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that starvation and desperation and selling your dead husband's watch wasn't breaking, just surviving. But she wasn't sure anymore where the line was. There. She pointed to a break in the trees. That's my land. Sam guided the wagon off the main road onto a path that was barely visible under snow. Kate held her breath as her cabin came into view, seeing it through a stranger's eyes. The half-finished roof covered with a rotting tarp. The walls that Patrick had been so proud of, now weathered and gray. The garden plot, where nothing had grown. The whole sad, desperate evidence of dreams cut short. It's not much, she said again. Sam pulled the wagon to a stop. It's a start. That's something. He helped her down, his hands firm around her waist, careful of her belly, and Kate felt the baby kick in response. For a moment they stood close, snow falling around them, and she could smell leather and wood smoke and something else, something essentially him. Thank you, she said, for everything. I don't know how I'll ever— You'll survive winter. Sam interrupted. You'll have that baby safe and healthy. That's how you'll repay me. He started unloading supplies, and Kate tried to help, despite his protests. Together they filled her cabin with more abundance than it had ever held, sacks of flour stacked against the wall. Cured meat hanging from hooks, Patrick had installed jars of preserved goods lined up on shelves. Each item felt like a promise, like possibility. When they were done, Sam walked around the property in the failing light, examining the roof. The walls, the henhouse where no hens lived anymore. Kate watched him from the doorway, wondering what he saw. Probably problems. Everything here was a problem. He came back as darkness gathered. Roof's worse than you said. Won't hold through another big storm. Kate's heart sank. I know. I've been putting— I'll fix it. What? I'll fix it. Tonight, if the snow lets up, tomorrow morning, if it doesn't. Sam, you have a stage to catch. I'll catch a later one. He said it like it was nothing, like giving up a job he'd traveled 3 weeks to take was no more significant than changing his mind about supper. You can't winter here with that roof. First big storm will cave it in. I can't ask you to. You didn't ask. I'm offering. His gray eyes met hers. Mrs. Brennan, Kate, I've been running for 19 years. One more day won't matter. But you staying alive through winter, that matters. Kate felt tears threaten again. Why do you care? Because Sarah died and I couldn't save her. Because my son died and I couldn't save him. Because I've spent 2 decades watching people suffer and telling myself it wasn't my business. It wasn't my fault, I couldn't fix everything. His voice roughened. But I can fix your roof. I can give you a fighting chance. Maybe that doesn't erase the past, but it's something I can live with. In the gathering dark, with snow falling and the baby kicking and this stranger offering to rebuild her life, Kate made a decision. Stay, she said. Not just to fix the roof. Stay until spring. Help me prepare for the baby. I can't pay you, but I can cook and there's space in the barn. Kate, please. She stepped closer. I know it's improper. I know people will talk, but I'm so tired of being alone. I'm so tired of fighting every day just to survive another day. If you're looking for a way to outrun your grief, maybe helping someone live is better than watching them die. Sam stood motionless, snow collecting on his shoulders. In his eyes, Kate saw the war he was fighting with himself, duty versus compassion, his plans versus her needs, the safety of distance versus the danger of caring. 1 month, he said finally. I'll stay 1 month. Get you through the worst of winter. Make sure the cabin's solid, that you have everything you need. Then I go to Cheyenne. 1 month? Kate agreed, knowing it was a lie even as she said it. Knowing that a man who'd given away everything he owned for a stranger wouldn't leave a pregnant widow in March, baby coming or not. But she let him believe it. Let him think he could still run when the time came. They shook hands on it, his grip firm, calloused warm, despite the cold. "Thank you," Kate said again. "Thank me when you're still alive in spring." He went to tend to the horses, and Kate stood alone in her doorway, looking at the supplies that filled her cabin. Food, safety, hope. All from a stranger who'd walked into her life 6 hours ago and changed everything. She pulled Patrick's watch from her pocket. It was still ticking, still keeping time that Patrick would never see. But now it was joined by something new, a chance, a future that extended past tomorrow. Kate wound the watch habit and ritual, then pressed it to her chest. "I'm going to be all right," she whispered. To Patrick, to the baby, to herself. "We're going to be all right." Outside, Sam McKenna chopped firewood in the falling snow, and with each stroke of the axe, Kate felt something shift. Not love too soon for that, but something like its foundation. Trust, gratitude, the beginning of connection. The storm came that night, howling and fierce, but the cabin stayed warm. The supplies stayed dry. And two broken people slept under the same stars, separated by walls, but joined by something neither could yet name. Survival, partnership, the first fragile shoots of healing. And in the morning, everything would change again. But for tonight, this was enough. Morning came with silence that felt wrong. Kate woke to the absence of wind the storm spent, and her first thought was that she'd dreamed it all. The supplies, the stranger, the impossible rescue. But when she sat up wincing at the ache in her back, she saw the flour sacks against the wall. Real, solid, still there. Outside, someone was already working. She pulled Patrick's coat over her nightdress and stepped into boots that would never fit right. Through the window, still just oiled paper, no glass, she saw Sam on the roof. He'd cleared the snow and was tearing away the rotting tarp, exposing the gaps Patrick had never finished. Kate's breath caught. He was actually doing it, actually staying. She built up the fire and started coffee hands moving through familiar motions while her mind spun. A man on her property. A stranger living in her barn. The town would talk. Mrs. Thorne would have opinions. Ashford would spread rumors that would reach Denver by spring. The baby kicked hard and Kate pressed her hand to her belly. "I know, but what choice do we have?" The coffee was ready when Sam climbed down. He knocked before entering, hat in hand, snow melting in his hair. "Morning," he said. "Coffee's hot." He accepted the cup with a nod, wrapping his scarred hands around it. Up close in daylight, Kate could see more details. The gray threading through his dark hair. The way his clothes had been mended multiple times carefully by someone who knew how to make things last. The gun on his hip worn smooth from years of use. "You're up early," Kate said. "Habit. Army taught me to work dawn to dark." He sipped the coffee, and something in his expression softened. "This is good. Real good. It's just coffee. It's the first coffee I've had that wasn't made in a tin cup over a campfire in..." He paused, calculating. 3 years. Maybe 4. The casual revelation of his rootless life made Kate's chest tighten. 4 years without a real home. Without someone to make him coffee in the morning or ask how he slept. Just endless wandering, endless work, endless running from ghosts that never got tired. "The roof's worse than I thought," Sam said, breaking the moment. "Patrick did good work on what he finished, but the exposed beams are already rotting. I'll need to replace about 1/3 of them before I can shingle. How long will that take?" "A week. Maybe less if the weather holds." Kate looked out at the gray sky, heavy with the promise of more snow. "It won't. Probably not, but I'll work when I can." He finished his coffee and set the cup down. "You got tools, saw hammer nails." "In the barn. Patrick kept everything organized. He was..." Her voice caught. He was particular about his tools. Good man. I'll be careful with them. Sam left and Kate found herself alone with the abundance of her newly stocked cabin. She should cook, make bread, do something productive. Instead, she sat at the table Patrick had built and cried not from grief this time, but from the overwhelming strangeness of hope. The morning passed in the rhythm of work. Sam's hammer provided steady percussion punctuated by the rasp of saw on wood. Kate made bread, her hands moving through dough while the baby shifted and kicked. She was just pulling the loaves from the oven when Sam appeared in the doorway again. "Kate, Mrs. Brennan, you got company coming." She looked past him and saw a horse picking its way through the snow. The rider was bundled against the cold, but Kate recognized the black coat. "Reverend Thorne," she muttered. "Perfect." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Problem? She's the preacher. Thinks it's her job to save everyone's soul whether they want saving or not." "Want me to make myself scarce?" Kate almost said yes. Then she thought about months of hiding, months of shame, months of caring what people like Ashford thought. She was tired. Tired of apologizing for surviving. "No, stay." Margaret Thorne dismounted with the stiffness of someone who'd been riding in cold too long. She was a solid woman, built for endurance, with gray-streaked hair, pulled back severely, and eyes that missed nothing. She tied her horse and walked toward the cabin, her gaze moving between Kate and Sam with obvious calculation. "Mrs. Brennan," she said, "I heard some interesting news in town this morning." "I'm sure you did." "They say a stranger bought you supplies yesterday. Quite a lot of supplies." "That's true." "They say he gave you $200. Kate lifted her chin. "Also true." Reverend Thorne's lips pressed together. "Kate, child, you can't possibly think this is appropriate. A man you don't know giving you money working on your property." "He's helping me survive winter. That seems entirely appropriate to me." "But the appearance," Kate interrupted, "is that I was starving and someone helped me. If that offends you, Reverend, perhaps you should ask yourself why you're more concerned about appearances than actual survival." Sam coughed, covering what might have been a laugh. Reverend Thorne's attention snapped to him. "And you are?" "Samuel McKenna, ma'am." "What's your business here, Mr. McKenna?" "Fixing Mrs. Brennan's roof." "And after the roof is fixed?" "Haven't decided yet." "I see." Reverend Thorne's expression suggested she saw quite a lot, none of it good. "Mr. McKenna, I'm sure your intentions are honorable, but you must understand how this looks. A widow, a strange man living in close proximity." "He's sleeping in the barn," Kate said firmly. "Everything is entirely proper." "For now. But Kate, winter is long, and temptation." "Reverend Thorne." Sam's voice was quiet, but cut through hers like steel. "I lost my wife in childbirth 19 years ago. I've spent every day since trying to live with that loss. When I see a pregnant woman who needs help, I help her. There's nothing improper about it. There's nothing shameful about it. And with respect, ma'am, if you came out here in this cold to lecture us, instead of offering help, perhaps you should examine your own Christian charity." The silence that followed was sharp enough to draw blood. Reverend Thorne's face went through several colors before settling on red. "I came to check on Kate's welfare." "Then check on it. She's got food, firewood, a roof that'll hold through winter once I'm done with it. She's as well as a pregnant widow can be in December. If you want to help, bring her midwife supplies when the baby's due. Otherwise, let her be." Kate held her breath. No one spoke to Reverend Thorne like that. The woman controlled half the charity in Colorado Springs, decided who deserved help and who deserved judgment. Offending her was social suicide, but Reverend Thorne surprised them both. She studied Sam for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're right," she said. "I apologize, Kate. I let gossip cloud my judgment." Kate nearly fell over. "You what?" "I said you're right. I was more concerned with appearances than with your welfare." Reverend Thorne pulled off her gloves, businesslike now. "What do you need? Besides what Mr. McKenna has already provided." I don't. Midwife supplies? Sam prompted gently. Yes. And? Kate's mind raced. Fabric. For baby clothes. I can sew, but I don't have material. I'll bring some next week. Clean cotton, good thread. Reverend Thorne moved toward her horse, then paused. Mr. McKenna, I misjudged you. I'm sorry for that. We all make mistakes, ma'am. After she left, Kate sagged against the doorframe. What just happened? I think you just got yourself an ally. By insulting her. By telling the truth. Some people respect that. Sam picked up his hammer. I should get back to work. That bread smells good, by the way. I'll bring you some. Appreciate it. He was halfway to the roof when Kate called out, Sam? He turned. Thank you for defending me. His expression softened. Anytime. The days fell into rhythm after that. Sam worked from dawn until dark, couldn't hide anymore, replacing rotten beams and laying shingles with the methodical patience of a man who'd built 100 things in 100 places. Kate cooked meals that actually filled her stomach, did laundry with soap that didn't need rationing, and slowly, incrementally stopped flinching every time she heard a sound outside. On the third day, another visitor came. This time, Kate was expecting trouble when she saw the horse, a big dun gelding that meant money. But the rider surprised her. He was black, tall, and powerfully built, despite his age, wearing a Union Army coat that had seen better decades. Sam saw him first. He climbed down from the roof and walked to meet the stranger, one hand resting casually near his gun. Not threatening, just ready. Help you, Sam called. The stranger dismounted. Name's Ezra Blackwood. I own the property 2 miles west. Came to pay respects. Respects? To Patrick Brennan's widow. Ezra looked past Sam to where Kate stood in the doorway. Ma'am, your husband saved my life last year. Figured I owed it to him to make sure his family was cared for. Kate came down the steps carefully. Mr. Blackwood, Patrick spoke of you. Did he? Ezra's face showed surprise, then something that might have been grief. He was a good man. Only white man in this territory who looked me in the eye when he spoke to me. When those boys from town came looking to make trouble, Patrick stood between them and my property with nothing but his voice and his backbone. They backed down. I didn't forget that. Neither did I, Kate said softly. Patrick had come home that night with bruised knuckles and a split lip, telling her he'd had words with some men who didn't understand that the war was over. She'd bandaged his hands and not asked questions, knowing her husband well enough to guess the rest. I heard you had troubles of your own, Ezra continued. Heard Ashford tried to rob you. Heard a stranger stepped in. That would be me, Sam said. Sam McKenna. Ezra studied him. You the one fixing her roof? Yes, sir. Could use help with it. Roof's big work for one man. Sam's surprise showed. I appreciate that, but nothing. I owed Patrick Brennan a debt. Can't pay a dead man, but I can pay his widow. You let me help or I'll come back every day until you do. Kate found herself smiling. Mr. Blackwood, we'd be grateful for your help. Ezra. And I'll need coffee if I'm working. Good coffee, not the swill I make for myself. I think that can be arranged. Over the next week, Ezra came every morning and worked until sunset. He and Sam fell into the easy rhythm of men who'd both done hard labor in hard places. They didn't talk much, but when they did, Kate heard pieces of their stories. Ezra's escape north, Sam's time in Kansas cavalry, the weight both carried from surviving when others didn't. On the 5th day, Sam asked the question Kate had been wondering. How'd Patrick stop those men? You said he had just his voice and backbone. Ezra was measuring a beam. He stood on my porch and told them that if they wanted my land, they'd have to go through him. Said he didn't care what color I was his neighbor, and neighbors protected each other. Then he asked them real quiet, real calm, if they were willing to kill a white man over it. because that's what it would take. Were they? No. Bullies never are not when someone calls their bluff. Ezra marked the wood with chalk. Patrick knew that. He also knew they wouldn't touch him, railroad man White married. But me, I was fair game. So he used what he had to protect someone who had less. That's character. That's the kind of man worth dying for. Sam was quiet for a long moment. Yeah, that's the kind of man worth dying for. That night, Kate made enough stew for 3. They ate together at her small table, strange trinity of widow drifter and freedman, and talked about nothing important. The weather, the quality of the timber, whether spring would come early, safe topics that didn't touch on loss or loneliness, or the fact that all 3 of them were essentially alone in a harsh world. When Ezra left, he clasped Kate's hand. Your baby's due in March, Patrick said, early March. I'll check on you come February. Make sure you're ready. He glanced at Sam. Unless you're planning to stay that long. I'm heading to Cheyenne end of December. That right? Ezra's tone suggested he didn't believe it any more than Kate did. Well, good luck with that. After he was gone, Kate and Sam washed dishes in silence. The cabin felt too small, suddenly, too intimate. They'd been living in careful distance, Sam in the barn. Kate in the cabin, both maintaining the propriety that kept gossip from becoming scandal. But something was shifting. Kate felt it in the way Sam's hand brushed hers when he passed a plate. In the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. In the way her heart picked up speed when she heard his footsteps outside. Kate, Sam said finally, we should talk. Her stomach dropped. About what? About this. About me staying here. About... He set down the dish carefully. People are going to talk more than they already are. Reverend Thorne might have come around, but others won't. Ashford's probably spreading stories all over town. Let him. It's not that simple. You're vulnerable, pregnant, alone. Men like Ashford, they look for weakness. If he can make you look improper, he can contest your land claim. Say you're unfit to hold property. Kate's hands stilled in the wash water. She hadn't thought of that. Hadn't realized that saving her life might cost her the land Patrick died for. What are you saying? I'm saying, maybe I should go. Not abandon you. I'd make sure you had everything you needed first. But my being here, it's putting you at risk in ways I didn't consider. No. The word came out fierce, surprising both of them. Kate. No. I won't let Ashford or anyone else dictate my survival. You're helping me. That's not improper, it's decent. If people want to make it into something ugly, that's their failing, not ours. Your reputation. My reputation. Kate laughed sharp and bitter. Sam, I'm a pregnant widow who nearly starved to death while her neighbors watched. My reputation was gone the moment Patrick died. At least now, I'm alive to have one. Sam studied her, something changing in his expression. You're stronger than you think. I'm too tired to be anything else. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, brief contact, gentle, then his hand was gone. For what it's worth, I think Patrick would be proud of you. Tears threatened, but Kate blinked them back. He'd be proud of you too. For helping us. I'm just doing what anyone... You're not anyone. Kate placed her hand over his, still resting on the counter between them. You're the man who gave up everything for a stranger. That's not just anyone. That's... She stopped, unsure how to finish. What was he, save your friend? Something more complicated that neither of them was ready to name. That's someone who's been running too long, Sam said quietly. Someone who needed a reason to stop. And did you find a reason? He looked at her, really looked at her, and Kate saw everything. He wasn't saying. The loneliness, the longing, the fear of caring again after loss had taught him caring meant destruction. Yeah, he said finally. I think maybe I did. The baby kicked between them hard enough that Sam felt it. His eyes widened. That's the baby. They're active tonight. Can I? His hand hovered over her belly, asking permission. Kate nodded, and Sam placed his palm flat against her stomach. They stood like that, barely breathing, until the baby kicked again. Sam's face did something complicated, joy and grief and wonder, all tangled together. That's a strong one, he said roughly. Takes after their father. Both of them. The statement hung between them, neither quite accusation nor quite promise. Just recognition that something was building here that neither of them had planned for. That Sam was becoming more than a temporary helper. That Kate was seeing him as more than temporary anything. Sam? Kate started, then stopped. What could she say? Thank you for staying. Thank you for caring. Thank you for making me feel like life might be worth living again. I know, Sam said, answering the question she hadn't asked. He stepped back, putting proper distance between them. I should get to the barn. Early start tomorrow. Want to finish the south section before the next storm hits. There's stew left. Take some with you. I will. Thank you. He gathered the food and left, and Kate stood alone in her warm cabin, hand pressed to her belly where his had been. The baby kicked again, and she smiled despite the confusion swirling through her. What do you think, little one? She whispered. Is he staying, or is he still running? The baby had no answer. Neither did Kate. But as she banked the fire and prepared for bed, she caught herself hoping. Dangerous, foolish hoping that maybe, just maybe, Sam McKenna was done running. The roof was finished on the 10th day. Sam drove the last nail just as snow began falling again. Fat flakes that would turn into a proper storm by nightfall. He climbed down and stood back, examining his work with the critical eye of a craftsman who knew one mistake could mean disaster. It'll hold, Ezra said, joining him. Good work. Patrick's design was sound. I just finished what he started. That's what we all do. Finish what the dead started. Ezra clapped him on the shoulder. You heading to Cheyenne now? Sam looked at the cabin smoke rising from the chimney lamplight, glowing warm against the gathering dark. Kate was inside, probably making supper, probably humming the way she did when she thought no one could hear. Not yet, Sam heard himself say. Want to make sure the roof holds through a proper storm. Then there's the firewood to finish cutting, and Kate mentioned the barn door needs fixing. Uh-huh. Ezra's tone was knowing. And after the firewood and the barn door? I don't know yet. Yes, you do. You're just afraid to admit it. Sam wanted to argue but couldn't, because Ezra was right. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was putting down roots for the first time in 19 years, and it terrified him worse than any battle he'd fought. She's pregnant with another man's child, Sam said. I've known her 2 weeks. This is life giving you a second chance, Ezra finished. Question is whether you're brave enough to take it. Before Sam could answer, Kate appeared in the doorway. Supper's ready. Both of you inside. It's too cold to eat in the barn. They obeyed, stomping snow from their boots, bringing cold air and the smell of winter with them. Kate had made roast chicken, a real chicken from the hen house they'd restocked with potatoes and carrots and bread, still warm from the oven. Abundance, safety, home. The roof looks good, Kate said, serving them. Really good. It'll last 20 years if you maintain it right, Sam told her. Check for damage every spring, replace any cracked shingles before winter. I will. And the barn door needs... Sam. Kate's hand covered his. Thank you, for all of it. You've done more than I ever could have asked for. The words sounded like goodbye, and Sam's chest tightened. Was she dismissing him? Telling him his work was done, he could leave now with honor satisfied. I'll stay through Christmas, he said quickly. Make sure everything's truly weatherproof. Then I'll head north. Kate's expression flickered disappointment, relief, but she just nodded. Of course, that makes sense. They ate in uncomfortable silence, after that the earlier ease gone. Ezra watched them both with barely concealed amusement, until finally he set down his fork. "You two are the most stubborn fools I've ever met," he announced. "Ezra," Kate said warningly. "No, I'm speaking truth. Kate, you're clearly hoping this man will stay. Sam, you clearly want to stay. Yet you're both dancing around it like you're at some formal ball instead of a cabin in the wilderness." He looked between them. "Life's too short for this nonsense. The war should have taught us all that." "It's not that simple," Sam said. "Why not?" "Because she just lost her husband. Because I'm nobody. Because I've got nothing to offer her except—" "Except everything she needs," Ezra interrupted. "Safety, help, partnership. Maybe more if you both quit being scared long enough to see it." "I'm pregnant," Kate said. "With Patrick's child. What man wants to take on another man's—" "Don't finish that sentence." Sam's voice was sharp. "That baby is a blessing, Kate. Any man who sees it different isn't worth your time." "But you said yourself you're heading to Cheyenne." "Because I thought that's what you wanted. Because I thought I was just a temporary solution to your temporary problems." "You thought—" Kate stared at him. "Sam, I asked you to stay. The first night I asked you to stay through spring. You asked me to fix your roof. I fixed your roof. I asked you to stay." They looked at each other across the table, two people who'd gotten so good at loss they'd forgotten how to recognize when something might actually be won. Ezra stood. "I'm leaving now. You two figure this out. Kate, thank you for supper. Sam, I'll see you next week." He paused at the door. "Or I won't, depending on whether you finally stop running and realize what's right in front of you." After he left, the silence was deafening. Kate spoke first. "Do you want to go to Cheyenne?" "Honestly, no." "Then why?" "Because staying is terrifying." Sam pushed back from the table, agitation driving him to his feet. "Kate, I watched my wife die. Watched my son die. Spent 19 years telling myself I'd never care about anyone again, because caring meant losing, and losing meant dying inside." He turned to face her. "Then I walked into Ashford's store and saw you trying to sell your husband's watch, and something in me just broke. Or maybe unbroked. I don't know. But I knew I couldn't leave you, couldn't walk away, couldn't let you suffer when I could do something about it. And now I'm in too deep. Now I wake up thinking about whether you slept well. Now I work all day so you'll be safe. Now I lie awake at night listening to make sure you're breathing, that you're okay, that nothing's hurting you." His voice roughened. "That's not temporary help, Kate. That's caring. And caring terrifies me because I know how fast it can all disappear." Kate stood moving as quickly as her pregnancy allowed and crossed to him. "I'm scared too. Patrick died 6 months ago. I should still be in mourning. I should be focused on the baby, on survival, not on—" She stopped, took a breath. "Not on noticing how you take your coffee, or how you hum while you work, or how safe I feel when you're nearby. I feel guilty for even thinking it. Patrick would want you to be happy." "How do you know?" "Because I loved Sarah, and if some miracle had saved her, if I'd been the one who died, I would have wanted her to find someone. To not spend her whole life mourning me. Love isn't selfish like that." Kate reached up and touched his face, her cold fingers against his scarred cheek. "What are we doing, Sam?" "I don't know, but I know I don't want to go to Cheyenne." "Then don't." "Kate, if I stay, people will—" "Let them. I'm tired of living for people who've done nothing for me. You've given me everything. If staying means scandal, then I choose scandal." Sam caught her hand, pressed it against his face. "I've got nothing to offer you. No money, I gave it all away. No prospects, just a horse, a gun, and a back that still works. That's enough. You deserve more. I deserve to be happy. We both do." Kate moved closer. "Stay, Sam. Not because I need your help, though I do. Stay because you want to. Because maybe we can build something here together. Something neither of us expected, but both of us need." Sam looked down at her, this fierce widow who'd refused to break even when everything conspired against her, who'd faced starvation with her chin up and shame with defiance, who was offering him something he'd thought was gone forever, a future, a home, a reason to stop running. "Through the winter," he said. "I'll stay through winter. See how we manage. If you change your mind, I won't. If you do, I go. No argument. Deal." They shook on it, but neither let go. Kate's hand stayed in Sam's, his thumb rubbing gentle circles on her wrist. The baby kicked between them, demanding acknowledgement, and they both smiled. "They're opinionated," Sam said, "like their mother." "Thank God for that." Kate laughed, and the sound filled the cabin with something brighter than lamplight. Hope. Possibility. The beginning of something that might, with care and courage, become love. That night Sam slept in the barn, as always, propriety maintained. But something had changed. Some wall had come down. Some distance had closed. When Kate woke to use the privy at midnight, she saw lamplight in the barn, and knew Sam was awake too. They were both done pretending they weren't connected. The storm came down hard after that 3 days of snow that buried the world in white. Sam and Kate were trapped inside, proper distance maintained, but intimacy growing. They talked, really talked. About Sarah and Patrick, about the war and the railroad, about dreams lost and dreams tentatively reforming. Sam taught Kate to play chess with pieces he carved from firewood. Kate taught Sam songs her mother used to sing. On the 3rd day, Kate went into labor. It wasn't supposed to happen yet. Kate woke at dawn on the 4th day of the storm with pain that stole her breath. Not the baby. Too early. March was still 2 months away. This was just exhaustion. Just sleeping wrong. Just... The pain came again. Harder. And she knew. "Sam." Her voice came out weak. She tried again, louder. "Sam." He was through the door in seconds, snow still clinging to his coat from the early morning check on the animals. One look at her face, and he went pale. "The baby." "I think so. But it's too early. It's not supposed to—" She gasped as another contraction hit, and Sam was beside her, catching her as her knees buckled. "How far apart?" "I don't know. Minutes, maybe." "Sam, it's too early." "Doesn't matter. Baby's coming whether it's time or not." His voice stayed calm, even as his hands shook. "I need to get Reverend Thorne. She's delivered babies before." "You can't. The storm." "I can and I will." He helped her to the bed, moving with quick efficiency. "How long have you been having pains?" "An hour, maybe more. I thought it was just—" Another contraction cut her off, and this time she couldn't hold back the cry. Sam's jaw tightened. "I'm going. Now. You stay here. Stay calm. Don't push until I get back with help." "Sam, if you go out in this, you could die. The drifts are 6 feet deep. You don't know the trail." "Then I'll figure it out." "Kate, I'm not letting you do this alone." He grabbed his coat, his hat, checking his gun out of habit. "Keep the fire going. Boil water. There's clean linens in the chest. I'll be back as fast as I can." "Sam, wait." She reached for him, caught his hand. "Be careful. Please." He pressed his lips to her forehead, quick and hard. "I didn't survive 19 years of running just to die in a snowstorm. I'll be back. I promise." Then he was gone, and Kate was alone with the pain and the fear and the baby who was coming too soon, too fast, too everything. She made it to the chest and pulled out the linens Patrick had bought for this moment. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold them. Another contraction hit, and she doubled over, biting her lip to keep from screaming. No one would hear her anyway. Sam was gone. Ezra was 2 miles away through impassable snow. Reverend Thorne was in town. She was alone, just like she'd been alone when Patrick died, alone when she nearly starved, alone in all the ways that mattered even when Sam was in the barn 20 feet away. "No," Kate said it out loud, fierce. "No, you're not alone. Sam's coming back. He promised." The baby kicked hard and she pressed her hand to her belly. "You listen to me. You wait. You wait until help gets here. You hear me?" The baby naturally ignored her. The next hour was pain. Just pain. Contractions that came faster and harder until Kate lost track of time, lost track of everything except the animal need to survive this. She paced when she could, breathed when she remembered, prayed when the pain got bad enough that talking to God seemed like a reasonable option. Patrick's watch sat on the table, still ticking. Kate focused on it between contractions, counting seconds, counting breaths, counting anything that gave her mind something to hold on to besides the fear. Too early. The words kept circling. The baby was too early. Babies born this early didn't always live. Kate knew this. Everyone knew this. You didn't talk about it, but you knew. "Please." She didn't know who she was talking to anymore. God, Patrick, Sam, anyone who might be listening. "Please let the baby be okay. Please let Sam make it back. Please." A contraction hit so hard she went to her knees. The water broke warm and wet, and Kate knew with sudden clarity that Sam wasn't going to make it back in time. The baby was coming now, right now, and she was going to have to do this alone after all. She crawled to the bed, pulling herself up. Every instinct screamed to push, but some half-remembered advice from her mother said not yet, not until you can't help it, not until. The urge became undeniable. Kate pushed. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, she screamed. Pain and pressure and the terrible fear that she was doing this wrong, that the baby would die, that she would die, that Sam would come back to find them both gone, just like he'd found Sarah and his son gone all those years ago. "No." She said it through gritted teeth. "I'm not dying today. You hear me, Patrick? I'm not leaving this baby. I'm not leaving Sam. I'm surviving this." She pushed again, and time stopped meaning anything. There was only pain and effort, and the desperate animal drive to bring this child into the world alive. Then when she thought she couldn't take another second, couldn't survive another push, something gave. The pressure released. And the baby was silent. Kate's heart stopped. The baby wasn't crying. Why wasn't the baby crying? With shaking hands, she reached down and pulled the tiny body onto her chest. So small. Too small. Covered in blood and fluid and perfectly, terribly still. "No." Kate's voice broke. "No, no, no. Please. Please breathe. Please." She did what her mother had told her years ago, what every woman knew even if no one talked about it. She cleared the baby's mouth, her fingers clumsy and desperate. She rubbed the tiny chest. She turned the baby over and patted its back, gentle, then harder, praying, begging. The baby coughed, then cried. The sound was thin and reedy, and the most beautiful thing Kate had ever heard. She pulled the baby back to her chest, sobbing, and looked down at the tiny face screwed up in outrage at being born. "Hello," she whispered. "Hello, little one. I'm your mama. You're okay. You're okay." The baby kept crying, lungs working alive, real. Kate examined tiny fingers and toes, counted them through. Her tears looked for any sign of injury or distress. Small, but breathing. Early, but alive. A miracle wrapped in blood and hope. "You're a fighter," Kate told her daughter. Because it was a girl, she could see that now. A tiny, perfect, impossibly stubborn girl. Just like your father. Both of them. She managed to cut the cord with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, tied it off the way she'd seen done, wrapped the baby in clean linen. The afterbirth came, and Kate dealt with it, moving on instinct and half-remembered knowledge. Then she lay back, exhausted beyond anything she'd ever known, with her daughter on her chest. "We did it," she whispered. "Just you and me. We did it." The baby's crying had softened to whimpers. Kate opened her dress and guided the tiny mouth to her breast, and the baby latched on with surprising strength. The sensation was strange and painful and perfect. That's how Sam found them. He burst through the door covered in snow, wild-eyed Reverend Thorne behind him, looking equally haggard. They both stopped dead at the sight of Kate in bed, clearly post-birth, with a baby nursing. "You're alive," Sam said. It came out choked, barely a whisper. "We're alive." He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside the bed. His hand hovered over the baby, afraid to touch, afraid to believe. "Is she?" "She's perfect, small but breathing, hungry." Kate smiled through exhaustion. "You have a daughter, Sam." The words came out naturally, and Sam's face did something complicated. Joy and grief and wonder and terror all at once. "Kate, I'm not she's Patrick's. She's ours." Kate said it firmly. "If you want her, if you're staying, she's ours." Reverend Thorne cleared her throat. "I should examine them both. Make sure there's no complications." Sam moved aside, and the Reverend did her examination with brisk efficiency. She checked Kate for tearing, checked the baby's breathing, and color, wrapped them both in warmer blankets. "You did good," she told Kate. "Real good. Baby's small but healthy. Another few weeks would have been better, but she's got fight in her. That counts for a lot. Will she be okay? If you keep her warm and fed, I'd say her chances are excellent." Reverend Thorne smiled, and it transformed her stern face. "You're a strong woman, Kate Brennan, stronger than most." After the Reverend finished, she made tea and forced both Kate and Sam to drink it. Then she pulled Sam aside, and Kate heard their low conversation. "That baby needs a father, Mr. McKenna." "I know." "And Kate needs a husband. Not just for propriety, though that matters. She needs help. Partnership. You planning to provide that?" "I'm staying." "Staying as what? The helpful neighbor, the charitable drifter." Reverend Thorne's voice sharpened. "That baby deserves a name that won't get her called bastard in school. Kate deserves a partner who's committed, not just passing through. So I'm asking you straight, what are your intentions?" Sam looked at Kate holding the baby, exhausted and beautiful and alive. "I want to marry her. Want to raise that baby as mine. Want to stop running and build something real here. Then you best ask her proper, and soon. Baby's here now. Can't wait for spring." After Reverend Thorne left, promising to return in a few days to check on them, Sam sat beside the bed. Kate was dozing the baby asleep on her chest, both of them peaceful in a way that made his chest ache. He must have made a sound, because Kate's eyes opened. "How long was I asleep?" 10 minutes, maybe less. Sam reached out and touched the baby's head so small, his hand covered it completely. "Kate, I need to tell you something." That sounds ominous. "It's not, at least I hope it's not." He took a breath. "When I left Sarah, when I buried her and the baby, I swore I'd never let myself care about anyone again. Swore I'd spend my life moving, never stopping, never risking that kind of loss again." "Sam." "Let me finish. I kept that promise for 19 years. Then I walked into Ashford's store and saw you, and everything changed. I tried to tell myself I was just helping, just doing the right thing. But somewhere between fixing your roof and chopping your firewood and learning how you take your coffee, I stopped running." Kate's hand found his squeezed. "I know. I love you." The words came out rough, unpracticed. "I don't know when it happened, maybe that first day, maybe later, but I love you. And I love that baby. And I want, if you'll have me, I want to stay. Not as the helpful neighbor or the temporary solution. As your husband. As her father. As someone who chooses you both every single day for the rest of my life." Tears spilled down Kate's cheeks. "That's not a question, Sam. Kate Brennan, will you marry me? Yes. She didn't hesitate. Yes, absolutely yes. He leaned forward and kissed her, careful of the baby between them. It was soft and sweet, and tasted like tears and hope. I've got nothing to give you, Sam said when they pulled apart. No money, no prospects. You gave me everything. Food when I was starving, safety when I was afraid, hope when I had none. You gave me a reason to survive winter, and now you're giving me a reason to look forward to spring. Kate shifted the baby, wincing slightly. That's worth more than money. Sam looked down at the tiny girl, her face relaxed in sleep. What are we naming her? I thought maybe Sarah, for your wife, and Rose for my mother. Kate's voice was tentative. Sarah Rose McKenna, if you agree. Sam's vision blurred. You'd name her after Sarah. She's part of your story, Sam, part of what made you who you are. I don't want to erase that. I want to honor it. He couldn't speak, could only nod and press his face against Kate's shoulder while emotion overwhelmed him. Sarah, his wife, his first love, his greatest loss. And now his daughter would carry. Her name would keep that memory alive in a way he'd never imagined possible. Sarah Rose, he finally managed. That's perfect. They stayed like that as daylight faded and the storm outside finally began to ease. 3 people who'd been broken by loss now becoming a family through sheer stubborn refusal to give up. It wasn't the family any of them had planned. Kate should have been raising Patrick's child with Patrick. Sam should have been raising his own child with Sarah. Little Sarah Rose should have been born in March with a midwife present and proper preparations made. But this was what they had. And sometimes what you had was better than what you'd planned. The next morning Ezra arrived, having spent the previous day digging himself out from the storm. He took one look at the baby and grinned. Well, that's earlier than expected. She's impatient, Kate said, like her mother. And stubborn like her father. Ezra looked at Sam. Which father are we talking about? Both. Sam's hand was gentle on the baby's head. She's got 2 fathers. One who gave her life, one who's choosing to raise her. Both count. Ezra nodded approval. That's right thinking. Patrick would be pleased. Over the next few days, the cabin filled with visitors despite the snow. Reverend Thorne came back twice, bringing supplies and checking on the baby. A few women from town appeared with food and baby clothes, their earlier judgment softened by the sight of a newborn. Even Ashford sent a gift fabric for diapers accompanied by a stiff note of congratulation that Kate suspected Reverend Thorne had forced him to write. Through it all, Sam stayed close. He learned to change diapers, though his large hands fumbled with the pins. He paced the floor at night when Sarah Rose cried, singing off-key songs his own mother had taught him. He supported Kate through the painful early days of nursing, brought her food when she was too exhausted to ask, handled visitors when she needed rest. He was, Kate realized already, a father in every way that mattered. On the 7th day after the birth, Reverend Thorne arrived with unexpected news. I can marry you, she said without preamble. Today if you want. Got my authority as a circuit preacher. Won't be fancy, but it'll be legal. Kate and Sam looked at each other. They'd talked about marriage, but hadn't set a date. Spring had seemed reasonable. Give Kate time to heal. Give the town time to adjust. Give themselves time to be certain. But looking at Sam, now holding Sarah Rose with such careful devotion, Kate realized she'd never been more certain of anything. Today, she said. You sure? Sam asked. We can wait if you need to. I'm sure. Are you? He smiled, and it was the first real full smile she'd seen from him. I've been sure since the moment you told me you wouldn't let Ashford dictate your survival. I just didn't know it yet. Reverend Thorne performed the ceremony in the cabin with Ezra as witness. There were no flowers, no fancy dress, no guests beyond the handful of people who'd become their unlikely family. Kate wore her everyday dress, still loose from pregnancy. Sam wore his work clothes cleaned but worn. Sarah rose, slept through the whole thing wrapped in the quilt Reverend Thorne had brought. The vows were simple, traditional. Sam's voice only shook on, "Till death do us part." And Kate squeezed his hand to remind him that death hadn't won yet. They were alive, together, building something that loss and hardship and everyone's expectations couldn't destroy. When Reverend Thorne pronounced them married, Sam kissed Kate like she was precious, like she was hope itself. And maybe she was. Maybe they both were. "Well," Ezra said after breaking the emotional moment, "guess you're staying through spring after all, McKenna." "Guess I'm staying a lot longer than that." They celebrated with a simple meal, passing Sarah Rose between them, talking about plans for spring planting and whether they'd need to add a room to the cabin now that it held 3 people instead of 1. Normal talk. Future talk. The kind of conversation people had when they believed tomorrow would come. That night, after everyone left and the baby was asleep in the cradle Sam had built, Kate and Sam lay in bed together for the first time as husband and wife. They didn't consummate the marriage. Kate was still healing, and Sam was too conscious of that to push. But they held each other, talking quietly in the darkness. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all be a dream," Kate said. "You, the baby, this marriage. It happened so fast." Fast doesn't mean wrong. Patrick and I courted for 2 years before we married. My parents insisted, said we needed to be sure. "Were you sure?" "Yes, but I'm also sure about this, about you. Is that wrong to love 2 men?" Sam was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother used to say the heart's not a pie. Loving one person doesn't mean there's less love for another. You can love Patrick and love me. They're different loves, both real." "Do you still love Sarah?" "Always will." "But I love you too." "Different, like I said. Sarah was my youth, my first everything. You're my second chance, my choice. The woman I'm choosing to build a life with, knowing full well what I'm risking." Kate turned in his arms, careful of her healing body. "And Sarah Rose, do you really want to be her father? Not just because it's right, but because you want to?" "Kate, when I heard that baby cry today, when I realized you were both alive, I felt something I haven't felt since Sarah died. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy." His hand cupped her face. "That little girl is mine. Maybe not by blood but by choice. And choice is stronger than blood any day. Patrick would like you," Kate said. "Would like knowing his daughter has 2 fathers who love her. Think so. Know so. He always said family was who showed up, not who shared your name." She pressed closer. "You showed up, Sam, when no one else did. When I was starving and desperate and out of options, you showed up and gave me everything. You gave me everything too. Gave me a reason to stop running. Gave me a family. Gave me a future I thought was dead and buried with Sarah." He kissed her forehead. "We saved each other, Kate." "Yeah, I guess we did." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, with Sarah Rose in her cradle nearby, making the small sounds babies make. And for the first time in longer than either could remember, neither of them had nightmares. Neither of them woke in panic. Neither of them felt the crushing weight of loss. They felt instead something dangerously close to happiness. The storm that had brought Sam to Kate's door had been brutal. The labor that came too early had been terrifying. The path that led them here had been paved with grief and hardship and choices that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. But lying in the darkness of a cabin that finally felt like home, with a baby that was theirs regardless of biology and a marriage born from desperate circumstances and unexpected love, both Kate and Sam understood something fundamental. Sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments. Sometimes love finds you when you've given up looking. Sometimes family is built from broken pieces that refuse to stay broken. And sometimes when the world tries to destroy you, the only revenge is to survive and build something beautiful from the rubble. They'd survived, they'd built, and now finally, they could begin to live. Spring arrived slowly that year, teasing them with warm days before retreating into cold that made Kate worry about the garden. Sarah Rose was 3 months old now, thriving despite her early arrival, and Sam had added a room to the cabin so the baby could have her own space. Life had settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal until the morning Ashford appeared with a stranger. Kate saw them coming from the window where she was nursing Sarah Rose. 2 men on horseback. One she recognized, one she didn't. The stranger wore a suit too fine for riding and carried a leather satchel that meant papers. Legal papers. "Sam," she called, keeping her voice calm despite the dread pooling in her stomach. He came from the barn, saw the riders, and his hand moved instinctively toward his gun before stopping. "Old habits." "Stay inside," he said quietly. "Let me handle this." "This is my land, Sam. I'll handle it." "Then we'll handle it together." They stood on the porch as Ashford and the stranger dismounted. Up close, Kate could see the stranger was young, maybe 30, with the smooth hands and soft belly of someone who'd never done physical labor. A lawyer then, or a land speculator. Either way, trouble. "Mrs. McKenna," Ashford said, and the use of her married name sounded mocking. "This is Mr. Harrison representing the Colorado Land and Development Company. He has some questions about your property claim." "My claim is legal and filed properly," Kate said. "Patrick registered it with the territorial office before he died." Harrison opened his satchel and pulled out documents. "Mrs. McKenna, I'm afraid there are some irregularities with your late husband's filing. The claim was registered under Patrick Brennan's name exclusively, with no provision for transfer to his widow." Kate's blood went cold. "That can't be right. Patrick said, what your husband said, and what he filed are apparently 2 different things." Harrison's tone was apologetic, but his eyes were calculating. "Under territorial law, when a man dies without explicitly transferring property rights, the claim reverts to public auction. I'm here to inform you that Colorado Land and Development intends to bid on this property." "You can't do that," Sam said, his voice dangerously quiet. "She's been living here, working this land, paying taxes on her late husband's claim, not her own. I'm sorry, but the law is clear." Harrison pulled out another paper. "The auction is scheduled for 2 weeks from today in Colorado Springs. Of course, if Mrs. McKenna wishes to submit her own bid." "With what money?" Kate's voice shook. "You know I have nothing. This is theft dressed up as law." Ashford smiled, thin and cruel. "This is business, Mrs. Brennan. Sorry, Mrs. McKenna. I forget you remarried so quickly after your husband's death." Sam stepped forward and Ashford stepped back, hand moving toward his coat. But Sam just took the papers from Harrison, reading them with careful attention. "These dates are wrong," Sam said after a moment. "Says here Patrick Brennan died in April. He died in June, and this filing shows the claim lapsed in November. But Kate was living here maintaining the property, which should count as active occupation under the Homestead Act." Harrison's expression flickered. "Where did you learn territorial law, Mr. McKenna?" "Here and there. Wells Fargo teaches their security men the basics. Property disputes cost the company money." Sam handed the papers back. "This filing is fraudulent. Someone backdated it to make it look like the claim was abandoned." "That's a serious accusation." "It's the truth. Patrick Brennan died June 15, 1878. I can get documentation from the railroad if you need it. Mine accident witness's death certificate. All dated June, not April." Sam's voice stayed level, but his eyes were hard. "Question is whether you filed false documents knowingly, or whether someone fed you bad information." Ashford had gone pale. Harrison looked between them, recalculating. "I was given these documents by my client," Harrison said carefully. "If they contain errors, that's a matter for the territorial marshal," Sam finished. "Filing false land claims is a federal offense. Fraud against a widow makes it worse." "Now see here." Ashford started, but Harrison cut him off. Mr. Ashford, I think we need to review these documents more carefully. Mrs. McKenna. Mr. McKenna, I apologize for the confusion. I'll be in touch once I've verified the dates with the territorial office. You do that, Kate said. And Mr. Harrison? Next time someone tries to steal land from a widow, maybe check the dates first. After they left, Kate's knees buckled, and Sam caught her. They're going to take it, she said. Even if those dates are wrong, they'll find another way. Ashford wants this land, and he won't stop. He's going to have to go through me first. Sam helped her to the chair, knelt in front of her. Kate, listen. I've got contacts from my Wells Fargo days. Men who know territorial law inside and out. I'll send telegrams, get proper documentation, make sure your claim is airtight. That costs money we don't have. Then I'll work for it. There's always work if you're willing to take it. Sam, you can't fight a land company. They have lawyers and money and we have the truth. We have witnesses. We have Ezra and Reverend Thorne and half the town who watched you survive winter here. He took her hands. I'm not letting them take this from you, from us. Sarah Rose deserves to grow up on the land her father died for. Kate looked at him, this man who'd walked into her life when she had nothing and stayed when staying was hard. Why do you keep fighting for me? Because you're my wife. Because this is my home now. Because... He stopped, smiled slightly. Because someone has to stand up to men like Ashford, and it might as well be me. Sarah Rose started crying from the other room, and Kate went to her automatically. The baby was hungry again, always hungry, growing stronger every day. Kate settled in the rocking chair Sam had built and let Sarah Rose nurse, while Sam stood at the window watching the direction Ashford had gone. What are you thinking? Kate asked. I'm thinking we need allies, real ones with power. He turned to face her. Kate, I've been avoiding something since I got here, something I should have dealt with months ago. What? I'm not nobody. I keep saying I am, but that's not exactly true. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. My brother Thomas is a territorial judge in Cheyenne. We haven't spoken in 15 years, family dispute after Sarah died, but he's still family. And he's got influence. Kate stared at him. You have a brother who's a judge and you never mentioned it. We're not on good terms. I left after Sarah died, blamed him for, it doesn't matter. Point is, he could help. If I asked. What did you blame him for? Sam was quiet for a long moment. He was the doctor, the one who delivered Sarah's baby, the one who couldn't save either of them. The confession hung between them, heavy with old grief. Kate understood then why Sam had been running. Not just from loss, but from blame, from the impossible anger of needing someone to fault when tragedy struck. And you think he'll help us? After 15 years of silence? I don't know, but I have to try. Sam came and knelt beside her chair, his hand gentle on Sarah Rose's head. This baby, this family, this land, it's worth swallowing my pride, worth facing the past I've been running from. When will you leave? Tomorrow morning. If I ride hard, I can make Cheyenne in 4 days, be back in 2 weeks at most. Kate's throat tightened. 2 weeks. 2 weeks alone with the baby, alone with the fear of what Ashford might try while Sam was gone. But she saw the determination in Sam's eyes and knew he was right. They needed help beyond what Colorado Springs could provide. Okay, she said. But Sam? Come back. Whatever your brother says, whatever happens, come back to us. Nothing could keep me away. You know that. He left at dawn, and the cabin felt too empty without him. Kate threw herself into work, garden planting, chicken tending, baby, carrying anything to keep her mind off worry. Ezra checked in daily, bringing supplies and staying for meals that Kate made too much of out of habit. He'll be all right, Ezra said on the third day, watching Kate watch the trail. Man like that, he survived worse than a ride to Cheyenne. I know. I just... Kate shifted Sarah Rose to her other shoulder, patting her back. I didn't realize how much I'd gotten used to him being here until he wasn't. That's love for you. Makes you vulnerable in ways you never expected. Did you ever marry again, after your wife? Ezra shook his head. Thought about it a few times. But I couldn't see past what I'd lost to what I might find. Sam's braver than me in that regard. He's choosing to risk it again. Is it brave or foolish? Maybe both. But I'd rather be a fool who tried than a coward who didn't. On the 5th day, Reverend Thorne brought news from town. Ashford's been talking, she said, settling at Kate's table. Saying Sam ran off, abandoned you, saying you'll have no choice but to sell the claim now. Sam didn't abandon us. He went to get help. I know that. But people believe what they want to believe, especially when Ashford's buying them drinks and telling stories. Reverend Thorne accepted the tea Kate poured. There's something else. He's been asking around about your marriage. Whether it's legitimate. Whether Sam had legal authority to marry you. Kate's hand froze on the teapot. You married us. You have legal authority. I do, but Ashford's trying to find a technicality. Says maybe Sam coerced you, or maybe you weren't of sound mind so soon after giving birth, or... She stopped at Kate's expression. I'm not saying I believe any of it. I'm saying that's what he's spreading around. He's trying to invalidate the marriage so he can claim I'm still an unmarried woman with no legal right to property. That's my guess. Kate stood pacing with Sarah Rose clutched to her chest. The baby sensed her agitation and started to fuss. What can I do? Wait for Sam to return. Trust that he's getting the help you need. And Kate. Reverend Thorne's voice was firm. Don't let Ashford provoke you into anything rash. He's looking for a reason to paint you as unstable or improper. Don't give him one. After she left, Kate fed the baby and tried to calm herself. Sam would return. He'd promised. She just had to hold on until then. But the next morning, Ashford returned with more men. Kate saw them from the garden where she was planting beans, Sarah Rose sleeping in a basket nearby. 4 men on horses, Ashford in the lead, all of them armed. Her stomach dropped, but she stood her ground, wiping dirt from her hands. Mr. Ashford, what brings you back? Just checking on the property, Mrs. McKenna, making sure it's being properly maintained during your husband's absence. The property is fine, and Sam is my husband legally married. About that. Ashford dismounted his men following. I've been doing some research. Turns out your marriage might not be as legal as you think. Reverend Thorne performed it, yes, but she didn't file the proper paperwork with the territorial office within the required time frame. Kate's blood went cold. Was that true? She didn't know the legal requirements. The paperwork was filed. I have a certificate. Do you... I'd like to see it. It's in the cabin. I'm not inviting you inside. Ashford smiled. That's fine. I'll wait here while you fetch it. Kate's mind raced. She did have a certificate. Reverend Thorne had given it to her the day of the wedding. But had it been properly filed? What if there was some technicality, some requirement they'd missed in their hurry? She picked up Sarah Rose, the baby starting to wake, and walked toward the cabin. Behind her, she heard Ashford telling his men to look around, check the fences, inspect the barn. Her skin crawled. They were looking for something, some excuse to declare the property abandoned or improperly maintained. Inside the cabin, Kate found the marriage certificate in the chest where she'd carefully stored all important documents. The paper looked official enough. Reverend Thorne's signature, the date both her name and Sam's. But was it filed with the territorial office? She had no way of knowing. When she returned outside, Sarah Rose was fully awake and crying. The sound seemed to please Ashford in some twisted way. Early baby, wasn't it? He took the certificate, examining it with exaggerated care. Born just weeks after McKenna arrived. Some might wonder about the timing. Kate's temper, held in check for days, finally snapped. You can wonder all you want, Ashford. My daughter is Patrick Brennan's child, born early because babies sometimes come early. If you're suggesting anything else, you can take it up with my husband when he returns. If he returns. Ashford handed back the certificate. This appears to be in order. For now. But Mrs. McKenna, let me speak plainly. You're a woman alone with a baby trying to hold on to land you can't properly work. The smart thing would be to sell. I'm prepared to offer you fair value. I'm not selling. You might not have a choice. The auction is in 10 days, unless you can produce documentation proving continuous occupation and proper filing. I can. The voice came from behind them, and Kate's heart leaped. Sam was riding up, and he wasn't alone. 2 men rode with him, both wearing suits that marked them as men of authority. Sam dismounted and came straight to Kate, pulling her into his arms, careful of the baby. I'm back, he said quietly, and I brought help. The older of the 2 men approached, and Kate saw the resemblance to Sam immediately. Same eyes, same jaw, though his hair was graying and his face held lines of a different kind of life. Mrs. McKenna, he said formally, I'm Thomas McKenna, your husband's brother, and this is Marshal Dawson from the Territorial Office. Ashford had gone still, trapped between running and bluffing. I don't know what you think you're doing here. I'm investigating fraudulent land claims, Marshal Dawson said pleasantly. He was a big man with iron gray hair, and the kind of calm that suggested he'd seen every trick criminals tried. We've received complaints about irregular filings in this district. Mr. McKenna here brought some interesting documents to our attention. Sam pulled papers from his saddlebag. Death certificate for Patrick Brennan, dated June 15th. Mine accident report, same date. Land claim filing showing continuous occupation by his widow from June to present. Marriage certificate for Catherine Brennan and Samuel McKenna, properly filed with the Territorial Office as of, he checked the date, January 15th. The Reverend filed it, Thomas added. I verified it myself. The marriage is entirely legal. And, Marshal Dawson continued, we have these interesting documents Mr. Ashford filed with the Land Office. Death certificate for Patrick Brennan dated April. Abandonment claim dated November. Both of which contradict the official records. He looked at Ashford. Care to explain that? Ashford's face cycled through several colors. There must be some mistake. The mistake was trying to defraud a widow. The marshal's pleasant tone never changed. Mr. Ashford, you're under investigation for filing false documents, fraud, and attempted theft of federal land. You'll need to come with me. This is outrageous. I'm a respected businessman. Who's been buying up land through questionable means for the past 3 years? Mrs. McKenna's case isn't the first. It's just the first where someone fought back. Marshal Dawson gestured to one of his deputies who'd ridden up behind them. Mr. Ashford, you can come voluntarily, or in irons. Your choice. Ashford looked at Kate, at Sam, at the marshal. Then something in him deflated. I want a lawyer. You'll get one, after we lock you up. They took him away, his men scattering rather than face questions about their own involvement. When they were gone, Kate felt her knees give out again, and Sam caught her, always catching her. It's over, he said. The claim is secure. The marriage is legal. You're safe. Kate started crying, couldn't help it. Relief and fear and exhaustion all pouring out at once. Sarah Rose was crying, too hungry and overwhelmed by the commotion. Thomas McKenna stood awkwardly nearby, clearly uncertain how to handle emotional women and crying babies. I should go, he said. Let you settle. Wait. Sam's voice stopped him. Thomas, I thank you for coming, for helping. You're my brother. I should have... Thomas started again. I should have reached out years ago, should have tried to bridge the gap. I'm sorry, Sam, for all of it. Sam shifted Sarah Rose in his arms, the baby grabbing his finger with surprising strength. I blamed you for something that wasn't your fault. Sarah's death, the baby, that was tragedy, not negligence. I know that now. I should have known it then. I was young, arrogant. I thought I could save everyone. Thomas's voice was rough. I couldn't save Sarah, couldn't save your son. That's haunted me for 15 years. Me too. But Thomas, Sam looked at his brother fully. I've learned something since then. Grief makes you stupid, makes you blame people who don't deserve it, makes you run when you should stay. I'm done running. I'm done blaming. Life's too short for that. Thomas nodded, swallowing hard. Then he looked at Kate at the baby. You've got a beautiful family, Sam. Congratulations. Thank you. And Thomas, don't be a stranger. You're family. Sarah Rose should know her uncle. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. After Thomas left with promises to visit in the summer, Sam and Kate sat on the porch steps. Sarah Rose had finally calmed, nursing contentedly, while Kate tried to process everything that had happened. Your brother seems nice, she said finally. He is. I just couldn't see past my own anger to remember that. You made peace with him. I made peace with a lot of things. Riding to Cheyenne gave me time to think. Sam's arm around her tightened. Kate, I spent 15 years running from my past. Running from grief, from blame, from the possibility of loss. But you know what I figured out? Running doesn't change anything. It just means you're tired and alone when you finally have to face what you've been avoiding. So you stopped running. I stopped running the day I met you. Just took me a while to admit it. They sat in silence watching the sun set over land that was finally legally indisputably theirs. In 2 weeks, there would be no auction. Ashford would face trial for fraud. Their marriage was legitimate, their claim was secure, and Sarah Rose would grow up on the property her father Patrick had died trying to build. Sam, Kate said quietly, do you ever regret it? Giving up Cheyenne, giving up the life you planned. Every day, he said, and her heart dropped until he continued. I regret that I ever had a plan that didn't include you. I regret wasting 15 years running instead of living. I regret every moment before I walked into Ashford's store and saw you standing there with that watch in your hand. That's a lot of regrets. But I don't regret staying. Don't regret marrying you. Don't regret becoming Sarah Rose's father. He kissed her temple. Those are the best decisions I've ever made. Kate leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. In her arms, Sarah Rose had fallen asleep, milk-drunk and content. Around them, spring was turning the world green again, promising growth and harvest, and the kind of abundance that came from hard work and patience. We did it, Kate said. We actually survived. More than survived. We built something. A family. A home. A future. Patrick would be happy, I think, knowing Sarah Rose has you. I hope so. I'm trying to honor what he started. The cabin, the land, the dream of building something permanent. Sam looked at the additions he'd made, the extra room, the repaired barn, the garden that was already showing green shoots. This is his legacy too, and I'll make sure Sarah Rose knows that. The baby stirred in Kate's arms, tiny hands flexing in sleep. She was getting bigger every day, growing strong on mother's milk and mountain air. Soon she'd be sitting up, crawling, walking. She'd grow up knowing this land, this cabin, these mountains. She'd grow up with 2 fathers, one who gave her life, one who chose to give her a life worth living. What are you thinking? Sam asked. I'm thinking about how strange life is. 6 months ago, I was starving and alone, and convinced I'd die before winter ended. Now I have you, and Sarah Rose is healthy, and the land is secure, and... Her voice caught. And I'm happy, Sam. Actually happy. I didn't think I'd ever feel that again. Me neither. Guess we were both wrong. They watched the stars come out. Same stars that had watched them struggle through winter. Same stars that would watch Sarah Rose grow up, and maybe watch her children after that. The land would outlast them all. But for now, it was theirs. Their home. Their future. Their hard-won peace after a war neither of them had chosen to fight. Come on, Kate said, finally standing carefully with the sleeping baby. Let's go inside. It's getting cold. In a minute, I want to savor this. Savor what? This feeling, being home, belonging somewhere, having people who need me to come back at the end of the day. Sam stood stretching. I never thought I'd have this again. Never thought I deserved it. You deserve it. We both do. They went inside together to the cabin that was finally finished, finally safe, finally theirs. And as Sam banked the fire and Kate put Sarah Rose in her cradle, both of them felt something they hadn't felt in longer than either could remember. They felt like they'd finally stopped fighting just to survive. They felt like they could finally start living. And tomorrow, when the sun rose on land that was legally and permanently theirs, they would begin the work of building not just a home, but a legacy. For Sarah Rose, for Patrick's memory, for the second chance they'd both been given when neither expected it. But tonight, they could rest. Tonight, they were safe. Tonight, they were home. Summer came with heat that baked the earth and made Kate grateful for the roof Sam had built. Sarah Rose was 6 months old now, sitting up on her own and grabbing everything within reach. The garden was thriving beyond anything Kate had imagined. Rows of corn standing tall, bean vines climbing the poles Sam had set, squash spreading green across the ground Patrick had once cleared. "Look at this," Sam said one morning in July, holding up a tomato the size of his fist. "We're going to have more vegetables than we know what to do with. We'll preserve them, can them for winter." Kate was sitting in the shade with Sarah Rose watching the baby try to eat her own toes. "Mrs. Thorne said she'd teach me her canning method. Says her jars last years if you do it right." "Years?" Sam said the word like it was foreign. "Never thought about years. Always thought about next week, next month at most. And now I'm thinking about next summer, about Sarah Rose's first birthday, about adding another room when she gets older so she has space to grow." He came and sat beside them, offering the tomato to the baby, who grabbed it with both hands and immediately tried to gum it. "I'm thinking about the future like it's actually going to happen." Kate leaned against his shoulder. "It is happening. We're living it." The peace they'd found after Ashford's arrest had settled deep into both of them. The land was legally theirs. Marshall Dawson had personally delivered the updated deed with Kate's name properly recorded as owner. The marriage was recognized by church and state, and the community that had once judged them now grudgingly accepted that maybe a widow remarrying quickly wasn't scandal, but survival. Ezra visited weekly, usually bringing something fresh meat from hunting news from town, his quiet company that had become essential to them both. On this particular morning, he arrived with unexpected guests. "Got some folks who want to meet you," Ezra called from his wagon. Kate stood shading her eyes and saw two people climbing down. A woman about her age with kind eyes and a rounded belly that suggested pregnancy. A man slightly older, weathered but smiling, with his arm protectively around his wife. "This is James and Mary Chin," Ezra said. "They've been homesteading about 10 miles north. Heard about what happened with Ashford and wanted to thank you." "Thank us?" Kate was confused. "We didn't do anything for you." "You fought back," James said. His English carried a slight accent, but was clear. "When Ashford tried to take our land 2 years ago, we had no one to help. No one believed us because—" He gestured to his face to Mary's. "We're Chinese. The law doesn't always protect us. But what you did getting the marshal involved, it opened an investigation into all of Ashford's dealings, including ours." "We're getting our land back," Mary added, her hands protective over her belly. "Land Ashford stole through false papers, same as he tried with you. Because you fought, we can fight too." Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm so glad. How far along are you?" 7 months, due in September. Mary smiled. "We heard you had your baby early, that she's healthy despite it. That gives me hope." The women fell into easy conversation about babies and birth, while the men discussed crops and weather. Sam showed James the irrigation system he'd built, copying something he'd seen in Kansas. Ezra watched them all with satisfaction, clearly pleased at bringing together people who'd been isolated by circumstance and prejudice. "You should come to dinner," Kate said impulsively. "Both of you. Bring your families. We'll have a proper meal together." "You don't have to," Mary started. "I want to. We're neighbors. That should mean something." They set a date for the following week, and after the Chens left, Ezra lingered. "You did a good thing there," he said. "Those folks have been alone since they arrived. No one in town will trade with them, won't sell them supplies, except at inflated prices. They've been surviving, but barely." "That's not right," Kate said fiercely. "They're just trying to build a life, same as us." World's not always fair to people who look different, or love different, or believe different. Ezra's voice carried the weight of experience. But sometimes, if enough good people decide fairness matters more than fitting in, things can change. You and Sam, you're the kind of people who might actually change things. After he left, Kate found Sam in the barn, repairing a harness that had cracked. She told him what Ezra had said, and Sam was quiet for a long moment. "I don't want to change things," he finally said. "I just want to live my life. Raise Sarah Rose, work my land." That's how things change, though. One person at a time deciding to do the right thing instead of the easy thing. Kate picked up Sarah Rose, who'd been napping in her basket. "You gave away everything you owned for a stranger. That changed my life. Maybe it can change others too." "I'm not a hero, Kate." "I didn't say you were. I said you did the right thing. There's a difference." The dinner the following week was chaotic and wonderful. The Chens brought their children, 2 boys, ages 5 and 7, who were initially shy but warmed up when Sam showed them the new kittens in the barn. Reverend Thorne arrived uninvited, but bearing pies, having heard about the dinner through the mysterious network that kept small communities informed. Even Thomas McKenna showed up, having ridden from Cheyenne on legal business and deciding to stop by. They ate at a table Sam had built specifically for the occasion, long enough to seat 10 people set up in the yard because the cabin couldn't hold them all. Kate had made roasted chicken and vegetables from their garden, and there was bread and butter and preserves and more food than seemed possible for people who'd been starving 6 months ago. "This reminds me of home," Mary said quietly, watching her boys chase each other around the yard. "In China, before we came here, family meals were like this, loud, crowded, happy." "You miss it?" Kate asked. "Every day." But America offers something China couldn't: freedom to own land. To build something that belongs to us, not to landlords or emperors. Mary's hand went to her belly. "This baby will be born American, will own American land. That's worth the missing." Reverend Thorne cleared her throat. "Speaking of land, I've been thinking about something. The church has a small fund for community projects. Not much, but enough to help families get started. I'd like to propose we use it to help homesteaders who are struggling. People like the Chens. People like Kate was before Sam arrived." "That's a fine idea," Thomas said. "And I can help with the legal side. Make sure claims are properly filed, that people understand their rights under territorial law. Pro bono, of course." "Why?" James asked, and his tone was cautious. "Why would you help us?" "Because my brother gave away everything he owned to help a stranger," Thomas said simply. "Made me realize I'd been using my position for personal advancement instead of public good. Figure it's time to change that." Sam looked uncomfortable with the attention, but Kate squeezed his hand under the table. This was what Ezra meant. One action rippling outward, touching lives they'd never know, changing things in ways they couldn't predict. After dinner, the men talked business, while the women cleaned up and watched the children play. Sarah Rose was passed between them, cooed over and admired, and Kate felt something loosen in her chest. Community. Real community, built not on obligation, but on mutual respect and shared struggle. "Your husband is a good man," Mary said, watching Sam show her boys how to whistle with grass blades. You're lucky. We're both lucky. I was dying when he found me. And now you're living. That's something worth celebrating. The evening ended with promises to help each other during harvest, to share resources, to be the kind of neighbors who showed up when needed. As Kate waved goodbye to the last guest, Sarah rose asleep on her shoulder. She felt overwhelmed by the abundance of it all. You're crying, Sam said, coming up behind her. Happy tears. I didn't know I could have this. Friends, family, a future that looks like more than just survival. We built it. Together. No. You built it. Kate. He turned her to face him. You fought for this land when you had nothing. You refused to give up when giving up would have been easier. You survived alone, pregnant through winter that should have killed you. I gave you supplies and fixed your roof, but you're the one who chose to keep living. That took more courage than anything I did. Kate kissed him, heedless of the sleeping baby between them. I love you. Have I told you that enough? You tell me every morning when you make coffee the way I like it. Every night when you wait up, even though you're exhausted. Every time you look at me like I matter. He smiled. But hearing the words is nice too. August brought different challenges. The heat was oppressive, making everyone short-tempered. Sarah Rose was teething, crying through nights that left both Kate and Sam exhausted. The crops needed constant attention, watering, weeding, protecting from insects and animals. It was the kind of relentless work that broke people who weren't committed. But they were committed. Sam worked from dawn until he couldn't see any more, building and repairing and improving. Kate managed the house and garden and baby with a determination that sometimes scared her with its intensity. They were building something that would outlast them, and that knowledge drove them through the hardest days. One afternoon, Kate was in the garden when she heard voices. Not friendly ones. She straightened hand, instinctively going to the knife she kept for cutting vegetables, and saw 3 men at the property line. Not from town. Drifters, maybe, or worse. Sam, she called, trying to keep her voice steady. He appeared from the barn, and Kate saw his hand rest on his gun. Help you, gentlemen. Just passing through, the leader said. He was tall and dirty, with eyes that lingered too long on Kate. Thought we might ask for some water. Food if you're feeling charitable. Water's free. There's a creek 1/2 mile that way, Sam gestured. Food we don't have extra. That garden says different. The man moved closer, and his companions spread out flanking. Seems like you got plenty. Rich folks like you can spare some for travelers. We're not rich. We're homesteaders, same as anyone. And we worked for what we have. That right. The man's hand went to his own gun. Well, maybe we worked for it too. Worked at traveling here, worked at being polite. Seems like that should count for something. Kate felt ice in her veins. These men weren't asking. They were threatening. And Sam knew it too. She could see it in the way he'd shifted his stance and the way his hand hadn't moved from his gun. Kate, take Sarah Rose inside, Sam said quietly. Sam. Inside. Now. She obeyed, scooping up the baby from her basket and moving toward the cabin. Behind her, she heard the confrontation escalate. Hiding your woman, are you? The leader laughed. Smart. Pretty thing like that man has to be careful. You need to leave. Sam's voice was flat. Now, while you still can. That a threat? It's a fact. This is private property. You're trespassing. Leave or face consequences. Inside the cabin, Kate grabbed the rifle Patrick had kept loaded. Her hands shook, but she checked the chamber, made sure it was ready. She'd never shot anyone, never wanted to. But she'd protect her home, her baby, her husband. She heard shouting, then a gunshot. Kate ran to the window and saw Sam on the ground. Not hit, he'd dropped to avoid fire, and his own gun was out, pointed at the drifters who'd scattered behind the barn. Another shot, this one from Sam, and one of the men yelped. Next one goes through your heart instead of your leg. Sam's voice carried cold authority. You boys got 10 seconds to mount up and ride out before I start shooting to kill. You shot me. The wounded man was clutching his leg, bleeding, but not badly. You can't. 7 seconds. The leader hesitated, clearly calculating odds. 3 against 1, but Sam had cover, and they didn't. And something in Sam's face said he'd done this before, survived worse, and wouldn't hesitate to kill if pushed. This ain't over, the leader said, but he was backing toward the horses. Yes, it is. You come back here, you die. That's not a threat. That's a promise. They left, dragging their wounded companion, and Sam stayed in position until they were out of sight. Then he stood scanning the area, making sure there weren't more. Finally, he holstered his gun and came to the cabin. Kate met him at the door. Are you hurt? No. You? Terrified, but fine. She was shaking so hard, her teeth chattered. Sam, what if they come back? They won't. Men like that are cowards. They prey on the weak and run from the strong. We showed them we're not weak. You shot him. In the leg. He'll live. But he'll remember. Sam took the rifle from her hands, checking it automatically. Kate, this is the reality of frontier life. Sometimes people come who want to take what we've built. We have to be ready to defend it. I know. She looked at Sarah Rose, miraculously still sleeping through the chaos. I want her to grow up safe. She will be. We'll make sure of it. He pulled Kate close, and she felt his heart racing despite his calm exterior. But safe doesn't mean easy. It means being strong enough to face hard things when they come. That night Ezra came by, having heard somehow about the confrontation. Word in town is those men were part of a gang that's been hitting homesteads, he said. You're lucky they moved on. Luck had nothing to do with it, Sam said. We were prepared. We didn't back down. Even so, might be smart to have someone nearby. I've been thinking about moving my claim closer anyway. Land next to yours is available. I could file for it, be a neighbor in truth instead of just visiting. Kate felt hope surge. Would you really? Been alone too long. Figure it's time to be part of something instead of apart from everything. Ezra looked at them both. You two have built something good here. I'd like to help protect it. They shook on it, and within a week, Ezra had filed his claim and started building a small cabin on the adjacent property. Other homesteaders, hearing about the community they were building, started filing claims nearby. The Chens moved their operation closer. A German family named the Schmidts took land to the south. Slowly, what had been isolated homesteads became a settlement. We need a name, Mary Chen said one evening when they all gathered for dinner. This had become a weekly tradition, rotating between houses, sharing food and stories, and the work of survival. Every settlement needs a name. Something hopeful, Kate suggested. Something about new beginnings. They debated names for an hour, until Sarah Rose, now 8 months old and crawling everywhere, pulled herself up on the table and grabbed Sam's cup, spilling water everywhere. Sarah. Kate moved to clean it up, but Mary was laughing. That's it. Sarah's hope. After the baby who survived when she shouldn't have. Hope for all of us who are surviving when we shouldn't. Sam looked at Kate, and she saw moisture in his eyes. Sarah's hope, he repeated. Both of them. My wife who died, my daughter who lives. Hope that continues even after loss. They voted unanimously, and the name stuck. When travelers asked where they were headed, the answer was Sarah's Hope. When the territorial office needed to record the settlement for mail delivery, it was Sarah's Hope. And when years later the railroad came through and needed to establish a station, it would be Sarah's Hope. But that was future. In the present, there was harvest. September brought cooler weather and the back-breaking work of bringing in crops. They worked together, all the families in Sarah's Hope, moving from field to field, helping each other gather what they'd planted. The Chen's corn, the Schmidt's wheat, Kate and Sam's vegetables. Everyone sharing labor, sharing harvest, sharing the abundance that came from cooperation instead of competition. This is how it should be, Reverend Thorne said, surveying the community working together. Neighbors helping neighbors, building something that benefits everyone. This is how it was always supposed to be, Kate corrected. We just forgot for a while. The harvest festival they threw in October was talked about for years after. Tables laden with food, everyone bringing their best dishes, their proudest products. Music from James Chen's violin and the Schmidt boys' accordion. Dancing that lasted until children fell asleep in their parents' arms. And toasts. Thomas McKenna stood up, glass raised. To my brother Sam, who taught me that courage isn't about fighting battles. It's about choosing to stay when running would be easier. Ezra stood next. To Kate, who refused to give up when giving up would have been understandable. You showed us all what real strength looks like. Mary Chen stood her baby, a healthy boy born in September, in her arms. To Sarah Rose, our smallest member, who reminds us why we fight, why we build, why we hope. And finally, Sam stood Kate's hand in his. To second chances, to families built from broken pieces, to communities that choose kindness over cruelty, and to everyone here who proves every day that the best things in life aren't found, they're made. They drank, and Sarah Rose, being held by half a dozen people who loved her, laughed at something only babies find funny. The sound carried across the settlement that bore her name, across land that had been wilderness, and was now home across the distance between what was and what would be. Winter came again, but this time Kate and Sam faced it together in a cabin that was warm and stocked and filled with the sounds of family. Sarah Rose took her first steps in December, on the anniversary of the day Sam had walked into Ashford's store and changed everything. They celebrated with a small cake Mary Chen had taught Kate to make, and with tears of joy that neither tried to hide. "She's walking," Kate said, wonder in her voice. "Our baby is walking." "Our baby is perfect," Sam corrected, catching Sarah Rose as she toddled toward him. "Just like her mother." That night, after Sarah Rose was asleep, Sam and Kate stood on their porch watching snowfall. The same snow that had once threatened death now promised renewal. Spring would come again, crops would be planted, life would continue. "Do you ever think about that day?" Kate asked. "In Ashford's store. Every day. I think about how close I came to walking past, how close you came to selling that watch, how different everything would be if either of us had made a different choice. But we didn't? No, we didn't." Sam pulled her closer. "You know what scares me most? Not the future, not the hard work or the uncertainty. What scares me is thinking about the life I would have lived if I'd walked past, if I'd gone to Cheyenne, if I'd kept running. You'd have survived. Survived maybe, but not lived. There's a difference." He looked at her, and in the lamplight, Kate saw everything. He was the man who'd lost everything and found it again, the man who'd chosen to stay when staying was terrifying, the man who'd become a father to a child not his own and loved her fiercer than blood. "I love you," Kate said. "I need you to know that. Every day, every moment I love you. I know. And I love you. Both of you. This life we've built." He smiled. "I'm not running anymore, Kate. I'm home." They went inside together to warmth and safety and the quiet breathing of a sleeping child. Outside, Sarah's hope settled into winter, secure in the knowledge that they'd survived worse and would survive whatever came next. Because that's what they did. That's who they were. Survivors who'd become thrivers. Victims who'd become victors. Strangers who'd become family. And years later, when Sarah Rose was grown with children of her own, she would tell them the story. About the cowboy who gave everything to save a starving widow. About the widow who chose hope over despair. About the baby born too early who became the heart of a community. About second chances and chosen families and the stubborn refusal to let hardship win. She would tell them that love isn't about perfect circumstances or careful planning. It's about choosing each other. When choosing would be easier to walk away. It's about building something beautiful from broken pieces. It's about staying when every instinct screams to run. And she would tell them the most important truth of all, that the best things in life, family, community, love, hope, aren't found waiting for you. They're forged in fire, built through struggle, earned through the daily choice to keep going when stopping would be simpler. Her father Sam taught her that. Her mother Kate showed her that. And the community called Sarah's Hope proved it every single day. Some stories end with happily ever after. This one ended with happily working toward ever after. With the hard, beautiful, messy work of building a life worth living. With the recognition that survival is the beginning, not the end. And in a cabin in Colorado Territory, in a settlement named for hope itself, 3 people who'd been broken by loss slept peacefully, knowing they'd won the only battle that truly mattered. They'd survived. They'd loved. They'd built something that would outlast them all. That was enough. That was everything. That was the whole point of living.